how much should I be spending when I start advertising on Facebook? Well, that's kind of it's kind of an interesting question. It depends on, obviously, first of all, it depends on your budget. It depends on a lot of different things. It depends on what types of cases you're going after. The person that sent this in, I don't know exactly what the budget is, or sorry, what practice area that they're using is. But what I would suggest, I typically go with like $30 a day is where I start. And what's really important is, it's really important when you're doing Facebook, it's really important to look at your cost per lead. And then once you can figure out your cost per lead and you can figure out what your close ratio is, then you can figure out, you start kind of getting pretty accurate knowing how much it costs you on Facebook to get a client. And then as long as your cost per acquisition is low and you're making money on the clients, then you can kind of scale up from there. So for me, for me, if I'm trying to get a webinar, I'm going to watch a webinar, I know it costs me about $30 to get a webinar registration. I also know that, I make X amount of dollars whenever, I also know that it costs me X amount of dollars to make a sale on a webinar. Because we know what our close rates are and all that type of stuff. So knowing that information, and I have enough data, what I can do is I can then say intelligently, okay, if I spend $1,000, I can expect to make X, or if I spend $5,000, I can expect to make X. And the reason that that's beneficial is because then once your numbers are right, and once you kind of figure all that out, then you don't necessarily have a big marketing budget. It's like if you've got your marketing dialed in to where that consistently when you spend $1,000, you're going to make $5,000. Then theoretically, if you spend $2,000, you should make $10,000. Now, it might not always work that way. It might, once you spend more, it sometimes will drop a little bit. But if you can spend, $1,000 profitably, then you should be able to spend $2,000 profitably. So for testing, I usually start with 30 a day, and then I go from there. And as long as my ads are profitable, then I keep scaling up, because that's one of the cool things. That's also why I do the self-liquidating offers with ClickFunnels. I do my free Facebook guides, I do my free book, I do all that type of stuff. And the reason I do that is because when I eliminate my ad cost, or if I have a higher, if I can make my earnings per click or revenue per customer higher, then I can spend more per acquisition and I can spend more profitably. So that's kind of a long answer to that question, but that's what I would suggest, is start with $30 a day. If you're doing personal injury, something like that, maybe try closer to maybe $100 a day, at least $50 a day. Maybe start at 50, then go up to $100 a day, and just see how that takes you.